Jen's pin tutorial, take 2. In response to a lot of comments on my initial Jen's pin linkage video tutorial, I decided to refilm it because in the first video I was shooting by myself and I didn't have my lovely camera lady to hold the camera for me. Say hi, camera lady. Okay, anyway. Jen's pin linkage is basically a 3-in-1 spiral chain with a really low aspect ratio. The aspect ratio should be between 3 to 3.4. I found that the ideal aspect ratio for this from this chain is 3.2 because it allows the chain to be a little more flexible on both sides, because on the lower aspect ratio it's a lot stiffer on the tight looking side, but on the loose looking side it folds over on itself. So with the higher aspect ratio, 3.2, it makes it perfect for extra flexibility. Alright, so for this tutorial I'm going to be using 14 gauge 1/4 inch in diameter rings. It's 2 millimeters thick with an inner diameter of 6.4 millimeters, giving it an aspect ratio of 3.2. Now what you do is you start off with one closed ring, and you take an open ring and you stick the closed ring onto it and you close it. Okay, then you want to take another open ring, and this is where you decide which direction you want the chain to spiral. You can either have it spinning this way or you can have it spinning that way. It just depends on your preference. I usually go this way though, just because that's how I like it. So take the rings and lay them on top of each other that way, the way you want to spiral, and then take a ring and you stick it through those two rings and you close it. Okay, now you formed what's called a Mobius, where when all the rings lay flat they make a sort of triangle shape, sort of like that. Now what you want to do is you want to take one ring on the end and hold it like that and let the other two rings out like that, how they naturally are going to lay. And then you want to take another ring and stick it through these two rings the same way that the ring you're holding on to is. Now with these two rings going through like that, here's where the pattern starts. As you can see with this finished JPL chain, which is my necklace I was wearing, all these rings go in rows that stack end on end, like that, down the whole length of the chain. You want them to all stack on top of each other, or on the other side of the chain it'll look like they're stacked beneath each other. So following that principle, we're going to take these rings and we're going to stack them on top of each other, like that. Then we're going to turn the chain, and you see the two rings on the right. You're going to put the next ring through those two rings, but going beneath the ring that's also going through those two rings, so that it forms the same kind of pattern where they're stacked on top of each other. So you take these two end rings and you put a ring through the two, but you also want to make it go beneath that ring that's before it. That's three rings before it. So every three rings is going to be stacked on top of each other. So you want to have these two rings stacked on top of each other, and then these two rings stacked on top of each other like that. And then with the sixth ring, stack it underneath this one and through these two end rings. So you take another ring, you stick it through these two end rings, making sure that it lies beneath the ring before it. So you should wind up with the beginnings of a JPL chain, where these two rings stack, these two rings stack, and these two rings stack. And if you continue the chain, it will end up looking like this in the end, where all the rings are stacked on top of each other in a spiral shape. So there you have it, and that's all there is to it pretty much. Just a tight spiral chain where all the rings that are oriented the same way in the chain are stacked one way on top of each other. But you want to be careful when you're starting a piece of chain and then you stop and then pick it up later, because the rings on the ends may have shifted because they're not as tight as the rings that are in the middle of the chain. Because once you get about 6 to 9 rings into the chain, the spiral shape is locked into place, and you have to make sure every single link in the chain matches that pattern, or else you'll have to take, because the weave is too tight for you to just take the chain apart, fix it, and then put it back together again. You have to take all the rings apart and redo it one ring at a time, the right way. And I know that because I've screwed up quite a few times making JPL before, and I had to take the whole chain apart. And it really sucks working with steel because your hands hurt after a while. So hopefully that's cleared a lot up for some of the people who were having a hard time seeing what I was doing when I was trying to hold the camera and make the chain. Didn't really work out as well. Also, I learned how to do another type of handmade clasp. It's just, I just call it an S clasp because it's shaped like an S. It's simple enough just looking at it to figure out how to make it. You just use that multi-tool like I showed you on the other tutorial over how to make a clasp. Only this one's double-ended and it's good for necklaces and bracelets. On a personal note, my wife and I are pregnant with our second child now, and it's going to be another boy, and his name is going to be Seth Alexander Aiken, and he's supposed to arrive sometime in the middle of December if all goes according to plan and he doesn't come early like his little brother, or like his big brother. And it's great because Ethan knows there's a baby in there, and he kisses the baby and gives it night-night hugs and stuff. I think that's about all I had. Do you want to add anything? Earthquake test. Okay, thanks guys. Sorry it took so long to put up a new video. My wife and I have had funding issues for our internet service, and we're going to be getting it back pretty soon. So hopefully I'll be uploading this within a few days. Until then, keep on mailing.